George Russell's polished PR image enrages pretty much everyone I know. But why does everyone seem to hate George Russell? From his days as Mr. Saturday at Williams to Max Verstappen calling him a princess, how did he fall so low? Today we're finding out.
Little bit of a clout, and George is going to be absolutely disconsolate.
George Russell's career started like many Formula One drivers, in the world of karting. Born on February 15th, 1998 in Kings Lynn, Norfolk, Russell was immersed in motorsport early on, following his older brother Benji, who also competed in karting. His father, Steve Russell, owns a successful logistics company and had the funds to support George's career early on. At the age of 8, George entered competitive karting, quickly making a name for himself. His most significant achievements during this period included winning the British Open Championship and the MSA British Cadet Championship in 2009. In 2012, he became the CIK FIA European Karting Champion in the KF3 category. In 2013, Russell moved into the more competitive KF1 category, competing against future F1 drivers like Charles Leclerc. However, even in these early days, there were whispers of the personality traits that would later divide fan opinions. Young George was meticulous, ambitious, and incredibly focused. Qualities that helped him excel, but also set him apart from the more relaxed, carefree demeanors of some of his competitors.
We had the first race we won, but then we were very unfortunate. In the race 2, we got hit off.
At the age of 16, George made his move to single-seater racing in the BRDC Formula 4 Championship. He won the championship in his first season, securing 4 wins and 13 podium finishes out of 24 races. The following year, Russell made his debut in the highly competitive Formula Renault 2.0 Eurocup and Alps series. His performances were strong enough to catch the attention of Mercedes. The next logical step for Russell was the FIA European Formula 3 Championship in 2016, one of the most competitive junior series at the time. Racing for High-Tech GP, he faced an exceptionally strong grid. That included Lance Stroll, who went on to win the title, and other future F1 competitors like Callum Elott and Maximilian Gunther. Russell managed to finish 3rd in the standings in his rookie season, scoring 2 race wins and 10 podiums. Shout out to Stroll Sr. for buying the entire championship that year. In 2017, Russell joined the prestigious RT Grand Prix team in the GP3 series. This was a crucial year in his career as he dominated the championship, winning 4 races and finishing on the podium 7 times out of 15 races. He clinched the title with 220 points, comfortably ahead of his competitors. Again, shout out to Stroll Sr. for not buying the championship that year and giving other drivers a chance. By 2018, Russell was on the radar of every F1 team as he made the move to FIA Formula 2, competing against Lando Norris, Alex Albon, and Nick de Vries. Russell joined Art Grand Prix once again and delivered a near-flawless season. He won 7 races, stood on the podium 11 times, and collected a total of 287 points, beating Norris by a margin of 68 points. I guess Mercedes are better than me in betting on drivers, because I was rooting for Lando all the way through. Yet there was already something in Russell's demeanor that divided opinion. In interviews, he came across as exceptionally polished, perhaps too polished for some tastes.
But this weekend's the real test, I reckon.
Yeah.
While his contemporaries like Norris were building their brands around authenticity and humor, Russell seemed to be cultivating an image of perfection. Nobody likes lame people that don't do nothing wrong. Like Joey Diaz once said,
"You gotta do something. You ever meet somebody that don't do nothing? You ever meet somebody that don't do nothing? They don't do nothing. They don't date, they don't do drugs, they don't play checkers, they don't do nothing. How long do you like those people for? You don't."
In 2019, his moment finally arrived. A Formula One spot with Williams opened up. What was once a promising teenager now looked like a future world champion with expectations sky high. However, Williams is not really known for making best cars and attracting best drivers, is it? Will the F1 spotlight and constant failures in a midfield team bring out the worst in George? Keep watching and I'll show you what a mess this became. George Russell's arrival in Formula One with Williams in 2019 marked the start of what many believed would be a defining period in his career. On paper, it was an opportunity, a seat in the most prestigious motorsport series in the world. But in reality, it was a seat in a team struggling at the very back of the grid. Williams, once a powerhouse of F1, had fallen on hard times, plagued by financial issues, underdeveloped cars, and a clear lack of competitive edge. To make matters worse, George was paired alongside Robert Kubica, but not the one you remember. At that point, Kubica was already a veteran driver returning to the sport after his devastating rally crash that severely limited the use of one arm. Not to be rude, but the entire situation seems like a beginning of a joke. However, in his rookie season, Russell's talents shone right through the grim Williams clouds. The Williams FW42 was one of the slowest cars on the grid, regularly over 1.5 seconds off the pace of the midfield. Yet, Russell outperformed expectations. Despite never scoring a point in 2019, he finished ahead of Kubica in qualifying for all 21 races, an unprecedented 21-0 clean sweep. While the team was stuck fighting for P19 and P20, George Russell's consistency in qualifying earned him the nickname Mr. Saturday. This period also showcased the first major cracks in Russell's public image.
I mean, no doubt we're in a better position. I think realistically we are still the slowest car.
The constant complaints began to paint a picture of a driver who might not handle adversity with the grace expected of a future champion. However, the following year, 2020, would see Russell paired with Nicholas Latifi, a well-funded but relatively inexperienced rookie driver. Was Williams just taking Latifi's money to stay alive? Absolutely. Williams still found themselves firmly at the back, because you cannot put a band-aid over a bullet wound and expect everything to work. Williams was so far behind in development, they still can't catch up, and it's 2025 already. By the way, I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers before summer break, so if you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. In 2020, Russell beat Latifi 16-0 in qualifying, further cementing his reputation as Mr. Saturday. He was one of the few drivers capable of dragging a backmarket car into Q2 on multiple occasions. Hungary, once again, was a standout moment where he qualified an impressive P12, outperforming faster cars. At the Tuscan Grand Prix, where chaos reigned with multiple crashes and red flags, Russell narrowly missed out on points, finishing P11. But there was no way to drag this pile of hot mess into the points. So, if you think it's the car that's holding you back, change the car, right? The moment for George to try on his big boy pants came at the Sakir Grand Prix when he was called up to replace Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes. With Hamilton sidelined due to COVID, Russell was thrust into the championship-winning car for one race. What followed was nothing short of a fairy tale, and if I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would have probably thought it couldn't happen. Russell outqualified Valtteri Bottas, and in the race, he stormed into the lead at the start and looked set for a maiden F1 victory. Yes, he was in the lead. However, a botched pit stop by Mercedes and a late puncture dropped him down to P9, despite a heroic recovery drive. Yes, you can blame it on Mercedes and on punctures, but this situation of George getting into the lead and then failing to secure it would happen over and over again throughout his career. We'll get to those moments later in the video, so keep watching. The Sakir Grand Prix was a turning point in public perception. For many, it confirmed Russell's exceptional talent and justified the hype surrounding him. But for others, his visible devastation after the race planted seeds of doubt about his mental strength. Back at Williams for 2021, Russell built on his growing reputation. The team was still in the lower midfield, but the FW43B allowed for slightly more competitive showings. At the Hungarian Grand Prix, George finally broke his points drought, finishing P8 after a chaotic race. His crowning achievement of 2021 came at Spa-Francorchamps. In treacherous, wet qualifying conditions, Russell delivered a lap for the history books, securing P2 on the grid ahead of Lewis Hamilton and behind only Max Verstappen. While the race itself was abandoned due to heavy rain, this counted as an actual second place. Hold on, how did that happen? Well, the race was the only World Championship race not to have any running under full green flag conditions, and also became the shortest F1 race, just one lap. So everyone just started the race, made one lap around the track, and went home. Yep. It was basically a scam not to refund the money for the tickets to this race weekend, but that race honestly deserves a separate video. The Williams years also saw the first major on-track controversy that would stain Russell's reputation. At the 2021 Grand Prix in Imola, Russell was battling with Valtteri Bottas, the very driver whose Mercedes seat he was rumored to be taking. After a wet race with changing conditions, Russell attempted a bold overtake on Bottas down the main straight. As he moved to the right on a damp part of the track, he lost control, clipped Bottas's Mercedes, and both cars went spinning into the barriers. What happened next would become one of the defining moments in the why people hate George Russell narrative. Rather than taking responsibility for the incident, Russell immediately marched over to Bottas's car and tapped the Finn's helmet in frustration. He then publicly blamed Bottas for the crash, suggesting that Bottas had deliberately moved under braking and that he wouldn't have defended like that against another driver, implying it was because Russell was after his seat. All of that coming from the polished good guy seems a little two-faced for my liking. The backlash was swift. Many criticized Russell for his lack of accountability and for his emotional outburst. Toto Wolff publicly reprimanded Russell, saying he should have known better than to risk a move against a Mercedes car. Russell later apologized for his behavior, but the damage was done. The incident revealed a side of Russell that hadn't been seen before, a driver who, when things went wrong, seemed quick to shift blame rather than accept responsibility. Sounds like a Lance Stroll to me! Despite this Mercedes fiasco, by the end of 2021, the call from Mercedes still came. Russell had earned his promotion to one of the biggest teams in F1, where he would replace Valtteri Bottas and join Lewis Hamilton. The underdog story was over, and Mr. Saturday was ready to take on the big leagues. But was he ready for the pressure? I don't think so. By the time 2022 rolled around, George Russell's promotion to Mercedes felt like the natural progression of his career. After 3 seasons of grinding at the back of the grid with Williams, his performances had caught the attention of everyone in Formula 1. For Toto Wolff and the Mercedes team, Russell was the clear successor to Valtteri Bottas, who had been Hamilton's teammate since 2017. But Russell wasn't just stepping into a Mercedes seat, he was stepping into one of the most dominant teams in the history of F1. Between 2014 and 2021, Mercedes had won 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships, and Hamilton had added 6 drivers' titles to his name. However, the 2022 season marked a shift in Formula 1 regulations, with the introduction of ground effect cars. These changes threw a curveball to Mercedes. The once dominant Silver Arrows found themselves grappling with a phenomenon called porpoising, where the car violently bounced down the straights due to aerodynamic instability. Despite the team's struggles, George Russell adapted quickly. In just his second race with Mercedes at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, Russell finished an impressive P5, ahead of Hamilton, who could only manage P10. Russell's consistency became his hallmark in 2022. That level of reliability earned him the nickname Mr. Consistency, proving he was far more than just Mr. Saturday. The highlight of George Russell's debut season at Mercedes came at the 2022 Sao Paulo Grand Prix. In a race that marked Mercedes' only victory of the year, Russell won the sprint on Saturday and then dominated the Grand Prix on Sunday. The message to all the haters was clear after this weekend. Russell was a race winner and a legitimate threat. This wasn't luck or strategy, it was a masterclass in controlled aggression, flawless execution, and confidence. Despite this victory, the season wasn't without challenges. The Netflix series Drive to Survive didn't help George's image.
With a bit of soya milk. Thank you.
And a nice latte for me.
Not only did he order a nice latte with, and I quote, "Any milk is fine," but he was also wearing ankle socks.
While seemingly trivial, this moment encapsulated what many saw as Russell's carefully cultivated, somewhat sterile, public image. By the end of the season, though, Russell had achieved something significant. He finished the championship in P4 with 275 points, beating Hamilton in the standings, who ended up P6 with 240 points. For the first time since 2016, Hamilton had been beaten by a teammate over a full season. Overtaking Lewis Hamilton is one thing, but for 2023, George was ready to take on Max Verstappen, and oh boy, that didn't go as planned. While Russell continued to showcase his qualifying prowess throughout the 2023 season, it was marked by several high-profile incidents that damaged his reputation and fueled the growing criticism of his character and racing approach. Perhaps the most memorable came at the Azerbaijan Grand Prix sprint race. At the start of the sprint, Russell and Verstappen went wheel-to-wheel through the tight opening corners. Russell made an aggressive move to pass Max, making slight contact and leaving Verstappen with visible damage to his side pod. After the race, Verstappen confronted Russell in the paddock in a tense exchange captured by cameras. The footage showed an agitated Verstappen approaching Russell directly, gesturing emphatically toward his damaged side pod.
Mate, we all have no grip. You all need to leave a little bit of space. but expecting it next time the same, you know.
The princess comment to the Dutch media was even worse. Memes featuring Russell with princess crowns and tiaras began circulating online, and the nickname stuck. The Canadian Grand Prix further exposed Russell's vulnerability. However, this time, something changed. Russell started the race in a strong position, but encountered issues on lap 12. He took too much curb at the turn 8, causing him to lose control and hit the wall, damaging his right rear tire and front wing. Despite the damage, Russell managed to return to the pits for repairs and rejoin the race at the back of the field. He made a commendable effort to climb back up the order, but was ultimately forced to retire on lap 55 due to brake issues. This time around, Russell acknowledged his mistake.
Small mistake from my side with massive consequences, just ran a little bit too wide, hit the curb, and next thing I knew I was in the wall.
If you ask me, accepting responsibility is progress. One step closer to not being called a princess anymore. Russell achieved 2 podium finishes in 2023, both third-place results, and secured 1 fastest lap. He concluded the season with a total of 175 points, placing him 8th in the Drivers' Championship standings. I think at this point, it was clear that it's time for him to do a little bit more racing and a lot less talking, right? And what did he do in 2024? Exactly the opposite. Continued talking trash to no other than Max Verstappen. With Lewis Hamilton's high-profile move to Ferrari announced for 2025, Russell faced mounting pressure to step up and prove himself as Mercedes' undisputed leader. The season began with Mercedes promising upgrades to close the gap to Red Bull and McLaren, yet early results showed inconsistency. In the season opener in Bahrain, Russell started strongly, qualifying P4, but a poor strategy call cost him a podium finish, leaving him in P6. At the Austrian Grand Prix in June, a standout performance silenced many doubters. Russell secured Mercedes' first race win of the season.
Game on once again. This time it's the outside line. Oh, they make contact. He's got a puncher. He's damaged his front wing. The leading contenders for the World Championship come together at turn 3.
Heading into the latter part of the season, Russell's results improved steadily as Mercedes upgrades finally started to deliver more consistent performance. Las Vegas saw George deliver a commanding win. However, the season also saw Russell's role as GPDA director come under increased scrutiny. The late 2023 conflict over financial fines, where Russell co-signed a statement demanding transparency on where driver fines were being allocated, further positioned him as a figure who some felt was overstepping his bounds. I mean, come on. Being GPDA director sounds nerdy enough, and you also signing some transparency papers? People are here to race. No surprise, Russell's standing among his peers had also deteriorated by the end of 2024. At the annual Drivers' Dinner organized by Lewis Hamilton, reports emerged that Russell became the subject of jokes.
We're going to save this spot for George right next to Max. And then George arrived. And then Max is like, mate, we've saved a seat for you. And George just picks up the chair and walks to the other end of the table and sits on the other side of the table with Lewis and with that end of the table.
All of this culminated in the 2024 Qatar Grand Prix. A qualifying dispute with Verstappen escalated when the Dutchman publicly accused Russell of being two-faced, ripped Russell a new one.
I've never seen someone trying to screw someone over that hard.
So, what actually happened? Max and George got into a mental dispute after a controversial qualifying incident. Russell was on a fast lap when he came up behind Verstappen, who was going slow on a cooldown lap. Russell felt that Verstappen had blocked him, and after a review, the stewards agreed. As a result, Verstappen was given a one-place grid penalty, dropping him from pole position, while Russell moved up to first.
And that's, for me, I lost all respect.
This led to Verstappen calling him two-faced, a comment that quickly spread in the media and among fans. Russell, on the other hand, rejected the criticism.
When he comes out and says, I'm going to purposefully crash into you, I'm going to put your head in the wall. For me, that is unacceptable. And he's gone beyond the line here, and I'm not going to accept it.
The dynamic between Russell and Mercedes' incoming rookie Kimi Antonelli seems intriguing for 2025. Antonelli, who idolized Max Verstappen growing up, represented a potential challenge for Russell in the future, much like Russell had been for Hamilton. And also racing together with a fan of your biggest rival, that's a challenge I don't think anyone would enjoy. So, why does everyone hate George Russell? Well, hate might be a strong word, but it's clear that Russell divides opinion more than most drivers on the grid. On one hand, he's undeniably talented. His rise through Formula 2, his performances at Williams, and his ability to push past Lewis Hamilton at Mercedes prove that he belongs among F1's elite. But for some people, me included, Russell's confidence sometimes comes off as arrogance. Incidents like his clash with Valtteri Bottas at Imola, the theatrics in the steward's room against Verstappen, or his tendency to deflect blame have created a perception of him being overly political and self-serving. Russell isn't universally disliked, he still has a loyal following and the respect of many within the paddock. If he can learn from his controversies, clean up the errors, stop teasing Max off the track and deliver consistent results, the narrative will change. Love him or hate him, George Russell is here to stay, and the best chapters of his career may still be ahead.